Imagine waking up tomorrow, and the two biggest planets in our solar system were no longer separate worlds. Jupiter and Saturn had become one giant nightmare in the sky. Sounds impossible, right? But here's the strange part. The process may have already happened before somewhere else in the universe. In December 2020, millions of people looked up and saw something almost unreal. Jupiter and Saturn appeared so close together that they looked like a single glowing object. Astronomers called it the Great Conjunction, the closest these planets had appeared in nearly 400 years. Through a telescope, they almost touched. But that peaceful alignment hides a terrifying question. What if they actually collided? At first, it sounds simple. Two giant gas planets smashing together. Bigger planet wins. End of story. Except, nothing about this collision would be simple. Because Jupiter isn't just big. It's a monster. More massive than every other planet combined. A world so enormous its gravity acts like a vacuum cleaner for the solar system. Comets, asteroids, entire moons. Jupiter drags them in constantly. And this is where it gets weird. Jupiter may already have survived a planetary murder. Scientists believe that billions of years ago, a gigantic object possibly 10 times the mass of Earth slammed directly into Jupiter. Not an asteroid, not a moon, an entire planetary embryo. The impact was so violent it may have permanently changed Jupiter's core forever. Now imagine something much worse. Saturn, a planet nearly 10 times Earth's diameter, wrapped in rings made of ice, rock, dust, and chaos. A world carrying more than 1,000 moons and moonlets like ammunition waiting to explode. If Saturn drifted too close to Jupiter, the collision wouldn't begin with the planets. It would begin with the moons. And that's when things changed. Long before Jupiter and Saturn actually touched, gravity would start tearing the system apart. Saturn's rings would destabilize first. Billions of frozen rocks and chunks of ice would spiral outward like cosmic shrapnel. Some would crash into Saturn itself. Others would be pulled toward Jupiter at unimaginable speeds. But that's not even the craziest part. Saturn's moons would become weapons. Take Titan, Saturn's largest moon, bigger than the planet Mercury, covered in lakes of liquid methane and wrapped in a thick orange atmosphere. If Jupiter's gravity grabbed Titan, the moon could accelerate into a catastrophic collision course. And Jupiter has seen this kind of destruction before. In 1994, a comet called Shoemaker-Levy 9 got too close. Jupiter ripped it apart piece by piece before swallowing the fragments whole. The explosion struck with the combined force of 300 million atomic bombs. The impacts heated parts of Jupiter's atmosphere to nearly 40,000 degrees Celsius. Now scale that up. Titan alone is more than 2,000 times larger than that comet. If Titan smashed into Jupiter, the explosion could briefly outshine entire planets. And this is where the nightmare escalates. As Jupiter and Saturn moved closer, their atmospheres would begin to touch first. Hydrogen and helium from both worlds mixing together in giant storms larger than Earth itself. Shockwaves would race through the planets for years. Not hours. Years. The skies of both planets would glow red-hot from friction and compression. Temperatures would rise so high that entirely new chemical reactions could begin deep inside the gas layers. Water vapor, silicates, metallic hydrogen. The planets wouldn't simply collide. They would start transforming. Then comes the terrifying realization. Saturn wouldn't survive. Because Jupiter is almost 3 times more massive and spins faster, its gravity would slowly overpower Saturn like a tidal wave swallowing a ship. Little by little, Saturn would begin disappearing inside Jupiter. But what emerges afterward could change the solar system forever. At some point, the collision would stop looking like two planets fighting and start looking like the birth of something new. A single gigantic object. Larger, hotter, more violent than Jupiter ever was alone. Scientists sometimes call Jupiter a failed star because its composition is strangely similar to brown dwarfs, the objects trapped between planets and stars. It already contains enormous amounts of hydrogen and helium, the same ingredients powering the sun. So here's the terrifying question. What if swallowing Saturn pushed Jupiter over the edge? What if the collision ignited a star? Suddenly, the entire solar system changes. Earth would no longer orbit one sun. It would orbit two. And this is where everything flips. At first glance, that sounds beautiful. Imagine two glowing suns in the sky. endless sunsets, double shadows, a brighter universe. But reality would be far darker. Two-star systems are unstable. Planetary orbits can shift unpredictably over millions of years. Seasons could become violent. Climate patterns could collapse. Asteroid paths could change permanently. Some worlds might be thrown into deep space forever. Others could spiral toward the sun itself. But here's the strange part. Even after consuming Saturn, Jupiter still probably wouldn't become a true star. To trigger sustained nuclear fusion, scientists estimate it would need around 75 times Jupiter's current mass. Saturn only adds about 30%. So instead of a second sun, the solar system gets something else. A superheated megaplanet. A world glowing from internal heat and surrounded by expanding debris fields stretching millions of kilometers into space. Imagine Saturn's shattered rings illuminated by sunlight like a giant sparkling scar across the solar system. For Earth, it would become the greatest sky event in human history. Every night, humanity would look up and see proof that planets are not permanent, that entire worlds can vanish. And that's when another horrifying thought appears. If Jupiter can swallow Saturn, what stops it from swallowing something else? Jupiter already controls much of the solar system without anyone noticing. Its gravity bends asteroid paths, captures wandering objects, and sometimes protects Earth from extinction-level impacts. But protection comes with a price. Because Jupiter is also capable of sending destruction toward us. Some scientists believe Jupiter's gravity may have redirected dangerous asteroids toward the inner solar system in the distant past. In other words, the same planet shielding Earth could also become the reason Earth dies. And after merging with Saturn, Jupiter's gravity would become even stronger. Not enough to consume Earth directly, but enough to destabilize things slowly. Tiny orbital changes over millions of years could completely rewrite the architecture of the solar system. Moons could escape their planets. Asteroid belts could scatter. Comets could begin appearing far more frequently near Earth. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. The collision itself might be visible from Earth for generations. Not one explosion, not one moment. An evolving cosmic disaster unfolding over centuries. Gigantic storms larger than continents would churn across the new planet. Lightning bolts thousands of times stronger than Earth's would flash through its atmosphere nonstop. Massive clouds of gas would glow in deep orange and crimson tones. The night sky would never look the same again. Ancient civilizations once feared eclipses because they thought the heavens were breaking apart. Imagine what humanity would think seeing an entirely new planet forming in real time. Religions would change. Science would change. Human psychology would change. Because for the first time in history, humanity would witness a planetary death with its own eyes. And that realization would hit hard. Our solar system feels eternal, stable, safe. But it isn't. Worlds collide all the time across the universe. Entire solar systems are ripped apart by gravity constantly. We only feel secure because these events happen slowly compared to human lifetimes. But what happens next changes everything. Because there's one final possibility scientists almost never talk about. What if Jupiter and Saturn colliding isn't the real danger? What if the real danger is what comes after? Because once a collision like this happens, the balance of the solar system changes permanently. And chaos in space has a habit of spreading. A heavier Jupiter could alter the orbits of distant objects in the Kuiper Belt, sending frozen bodies inward like cosmic bullets. Future impacts on Earth could become more common. Entire moon systems could become unstable. And then there's Neptune, Uranus, even Mars. Over millions of years, one planetary collision could trigger a chain reaction nobody fully understands. But that's not even the creepiest part. The universe may already be full of dead worlds created this exact way. Astronomers have discovered giant exoplanets orbiting distant stars with impossible compositions, strange heat signatures, and bizarre atmospheric chemistry. Some scientists suspect these worlds were formed through catastrophic collisions between gas giants. Meaning somewhere out there, a new Jupiter may already exist. Still glowing. Still unstable. Still carrying the scars of planetary destruction. And if intelligent life existed nearby, they may have watched their sky change forever just like we would. That's what makes this scenario so haunting. It reminds us that planets are temporary. Even giants can die. One gravitational shift. One orbital mistake. One collision, and an entire world disappears. Yet somehow, the strangest detail of all is this. Back in 2020, when Jupiter and Saturn appeared side by side in the night sky, most people saw something beautiful. But hidden inside that beauty was a terrifying possibility. A reminder that the solar system is not frozen in time. It's moving, changing, evolving. And somewhere in the distant future, another great conjunction could become something far worse. Because the universe doesn't care how stable things seem. The universe only waits. And the question is, when the next collision finally happens, will humanity still be here to see it?